At the core of John Seed's environmental activism is the philosophy of deep ecology, which requires us to radically rethink our relationship with the natural world. Deep ecology, a term originally coined by Norwegian philosopher Arne Næss, contrasts sharply with what we might call shallow ecology, environmentalism focused on solving problems within the framework of human interests. While shallow ecology is concerned with how environmental degradation impacts human health, the economy, and future generations, deep ecology goes much further. It asserts that all life, human or non-human, has inherent value, independent of its utility to humans. Let's take a moment to reflect on that. In our modern world, most decisions, whether they're about development, resource extraction, or conservation, are driven by how they benefit humanity. But deep ecology asks a provocative question: what if life itself, in all its forms, holds value simply because it exists? Imagine the profound shift in our behavior if we truly believed that every tree, every river, every species, no matter how useful or valuable to humans, has a right to exist. It's a transformative concept, isn't it? The implications of this philosophy are staggering. If we accept that all life has intrinsic value, then the exploitation and destruction of ecosystems become ethical issues, not just environmental or economic ones. Think about how differently we would approach problems like deforestation, climate change, or species extinction if we viewed them through the lens of deep ecology. These aren't just technical challenges to be solved with policies or technologies, they are moral crises. Every tree cut down, every animal driven to extinction, every river polluted is a violation of the rights of those beings to exist and thrive. This is the radical ethical stance that deep ecology asks us to embrace. How different would the world look if more people internalized this belief? In advocating for deep ecology, John Seed has helped to popularize and expand these ideas, intertwining them with spiritual traditions, particularly those of Buddhism, to emphasize the interconnectedness and interdependence of all beings. This brings us to the second pillar of Seed's philosophy, the Buddhist concept of interdependence. Interdependence, a Buddhist perspective. In Buddhist philosophy, the concept of interdependence, also known as dependent origination or pratitya samutpada, is foundational. It teaches that nothing exists independently, everything is interconnected and arises in dependence on causes and conditions. This is a profound insight, one that has vast implications for how we understand the world and our place in it. Think about this. In our everyday lives, we tend to see ourselves as separate from everything else. We are individuals, with our own thoughts, bodies, and experiences. But Buddhism challenges this notion of separateness. According to the teachings of interdependence, everything we are, our bodies, our minds, our identities, arises through a complex web of relationships. We are shaped by our environment, our communities, the food we eat, the air we breathe. Even our thoughts and emotions are influenced by external conditions. This means that we are not isolated entities, but deeply interconnected with the world around us. Isn't that a humbling realization? For John Seed, this Buddhist understanding of interdependence became a critical part of his environmental philosophy. He saw that just as we are interconnected with other people and our immediate surroundings, we are also deeply connected with the entire web of life. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, all come from the earth. Our well-being is directly tied to the health of ecosystems, the balance of natural cycles, and the survival of other species. Seed often speaks of the illusion of separation, the false belief that humans are somehow separate from nature, that we can exploit the earth without consequence. But as Buddhism teaches, this is an illusion. In reality, our fates are intertwined. The destruction of the natural world is, ultimately, a form of self-destruction. How much more urgent does environmental protection seem when framed in this way? The concept of interdependence also aligns with the idea of no self, anatta. Another core Buddhist teaching that deeply influenced Seed's work. According to this teaching, the self is not a permanent, unchanging entity. Instead, what we think of as self is simply a collection of physical and mental processes that arise and fall in dependence on various conditions. There is no fixed, independent self, only a dynamic flow of experiences, shaped by our relationships with others and the environment. Can you imagine what it would feel like to truly internalize this idea? It would change how we view our relationships, not only with other people but with all living beings and the planet itself. For John Seed, the realization of no self is key to understanding our relationship with the environment. If there is no fixed, separate self, then the boundaries between self and nature begin to dissolve. We are not isolated individuals standing apart from the earth. We are part of the earth, part of the vast, interconnected web of life. This leads to a profound shift in perspective. Protecting the environment is no longer something external that we do for future generations, or even for the planet. It becomes an act of self-preservation, because in harming the earth, we are harming ourselves. Isn't that a powerful insight? The ecological self, expanding our identity. One of the most significant philosophical contributions John Seed has made is the concept of the ecological self, which he draws from both Deep Ecology and Buddhist teachings. The ecological self is a broader, more expansive sense of identity that goes beyond the individual ego. Instead of identifying solely with our personal desires, needs, and interests, the ecological self recognizes our connection to all life forms and ecosystems. In this view, the boundaries of the self are not confined to the physical body or the mind. They extend outward to include the entire natural world. Can you imagine living with that kind of awareness? The idea of the ecological self challenges the modern, individualistic worldview that dominates much of Western society. In our culture, we are often encouraged to think of ourselves as separate individuals, pursuing our own goals and fulfilling our own desires. This individualism can lead to a sense of alienation, not only from other people but from the world around us. We feel disconnected from nature, from the communities we live in, and even from ourselves. But the ecological self offers a way to heal that disconnection. By expanding our sense of identity to include the earth and all its inhabitants, we begin to see environmental protection as an expression of who we are, rather than something external that we should do. Imagine how different our relationship with nature would be if we truly felt that the forests, rivers, and oceans were part of us. Wouldn't we be more likely to protect them? Not out of obligation, but out of love and self-preservation. This is the kind of shift in consciousness that Seed believes is necessary if we are to address the environmental crises we face. This broader sense of identity also brings with it a profound sense of responsibility. If we are part of the earth, then we have a responsibility to care for it, just as we care for our own bodies. This responsibility is not just a legal or moral obligation, it's a natural extension of who we are. We protect the earth because it is part of us, just as we protect our own health and well-being. This sense of responsibility is deeply rooted in compassion, a core value in both Buddhism and Deep Ecology. By recognizing the interconnectedness of all life, we develop compassion for all beings, human and non-human alike. This compassion becomes the foundation for ethical action. Isn't it inspiring to think that by expanding our sense of self, we can cultivate a deeper, more compassionate way of living in the world, overcoming the illusion of separation? One of the most destructive illusions that John Seed's work seeks to challenge is the illusion of separation, the false belief that we are separate from nature and from each other. This illusion is at the root of many of the environmental problems we face today. It allows us to exploit the Earth's resources without considering the long-term consequences. It enables industries to pollute air and water, to clear-cut forests, and to drive species to extinction, all in the name of progress and profit. But what if we could break free from this illusion? Seed argues that overcoming the illusion of separation is not just a philosophical exercise, it's a necessity for our survival. As long as we continue to see ourselves as separate from nature, we will continue to harm the planet. But when we recognize our deep interconnectedness with the earth, we begin to see that every act of environmental destruction is an act of self-harm. This shift in perception is not just intellectual, it's deeply emotional and spiritual. When we feel our connection to the earth on a visceral level, we are more likely to take action to protect it. Can you imagine what it would be like if more people had this kind of awakening? The spiritual dimension of environmental activism. For John Seed, environmental activism is not just a political or social cause, it's a spiritual imperative. This spiritual dimension is what sets his work apart from many other environmental movements. While policies and regulations are important, Seed believes that the root of the environmental crisis is a spiritual crisis. We have lost our connection to the earth, and until we regain that connection, no amount of technological innovation or policy reform will be enough to solve the problems we face. This spiritual dimension is reflected in the practices and workshops that Seed has developed, such as the Council of All Beings. These workshops are designed to help participants reconnect with the earth on a deep, spiritual level. They go beyond intellectual discussions about the environment and invite participants to experience their connection to nature in a direct, embodied way. Through rituals, meditations, and creative exercises, participants are encouraged to step out of their individual identities and speak on behalf of the earth and its creatures. Can you imagine what it would be like to speak as the voice of a river, a forest, or a mountain? How might that change the way you see the world? The spiritual dimension of Seed's work also emphasizes the importance of mindfulness and presence. In our fast-paced, modern world, we are often disconnected from the present moment, caught up in worries about the future or regrets about the past. But mindfulness, being fully present in the here and now, allows us to reconnect with the world around us. When we are fully present, we can experience the beauty and wonder of nature in a way that is transformative. This sense of awe and reverence for the natural world is at the heart of Seed's environmental philosophy. It's not enough to intellectually understand our connection to the earth, we must feel it, live it, and embody it. Isn't that the kind of shift that could truly change the world? A call to action, embodying the ecological self. Ultimately, the philosophical insights of deep ecology and Buddhism lead us to a call to action. If we are part of the earth, if we are deeply interconnected with all life, then we have a responsibility to protect and preserve the natural world. This is not just a political or social responsibility, it's a spiritual one. Environmental activism, in this sense, is not just about saving the planet for future generations, it's about aligning our lives with the deeper truths of existence. John Seed's work challenges us to embody the ecological self in our daily lives. This means more than just adopting sustainable practices or supporting environmental causes. It means fundamentally changing the way we see ourselves and our place in the world. It means recognizing that every action we take, no matter how small, has an impact on the web of life. It means living with a sense of reverence for the earth and all its creatures. It means cultivating compassion for all beings, human and non-human alike. And it means taking responsibility for the well-being of the planet, not because it's the right thing to do, but because it's who we are. Can you imagine what the world would be like if more people embraced this way of living? How much could we change? How much could we heal? This is the vision that John Seed offers us, a vision of a world where humans live in harmony with the earth, where we recognize our deep connection to all life, and where environmental activism is not just a cause, but a way of being. Isn't that a world worth striving for?